the Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation. Chapter 33. Grasses, Part 2. The sudden peculiar noises of a bamboo pole knocking on the ground sounded loud then soft, far then near, making it so that it was impossible to determine where or what exactly was making it. Wei Wuxian, all of you, come over. Huddle close. Don't move and don't attack. Amid the fog, if the juniors all withdrew their swords and attempted to attack, it'd be possible for them to hurt themselves instead of the enemy. After a moment, the noise stopped. Having waited in silence for a few seconds, one disciple spoke under his breath, "It's that again. Just how long is it going to follow us for?" Wei Wuxian, "It's been following you?" Lan Sizui, "After we entered the city, because the fog was too thick and it would be easy to wander off, we decided to walk closely together. Then, we suddenly heard the noise. At the time, it was not as fast. It went quite slowly, one knock at a time. Through the fog, we also managed to see a short shadow walk past, right in front of us. But when we chased over, it disappeared. The noise has been following us ever since." Wei Wuxian, "How short?" Lan Sizui gestured at his chest, "Very short. Very small." Wei Wuxian, "How long have you been here for?" Lan Sizui, "Around 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Wei Wuxian asked, "Han Guangjun, how long have we been here for?" Lan Wangji's voice sounded from behind the hazy fog, "Around 30 minutes. Look," Wei Wuxian continued, "we've been here for longer than you did. How is it possible that you ended up in front of us, and only ran into us after you turned around?" Jinling couldn't help but replied, "We never turned around. We've always been walking forward, following this path." If both of them were walking forward, then would it be possible that someone jinxed the path and made it into a cyclic maze array? Wei Wuxian asked again, "Have you tried using your swords to fly up and see?" Lan Sizui, "Yes. I thought that I flew a long distance upward, but it was actually not that high. And there were also some fuzzy shadows darting here and there. I did not know what they were and was afraid that I could not deal with them, so I came down." Hearing this, everyone was silent for a while. Since the Shadong area was foggy anyway, they never thought too much about the fog in the city. Now, it seemed that the fog didn't form naturally and really was a ghostly mist. Lan Jingyi was shocked, "The fog wouldn't be poisonous, would it?" Wei Wuxian, "It probably isn't. We've been in here for quite a while, and we're still alive." Jinling, "I should have brought Fairy with me. It's all because of your damned donkey." Hearing the dog's name, goosebumps climbed all over Wei Wuxian's back. He then heard Lan Jingyi shout, "We have not even blamed your dog yet. It opened its mouth to bite first, and then it ended up with Lil Apple's hoof. Whose fault was that? Anyhow, neither of them can move at this point." Wei Wuxian, "What? My Lil Apple was bitten by a dog?" Jinling, "How can that donkey be more important than my spiritual dog? Fairy was given to me by my youngest uncle. If something happened to it, not even 10,000 donkeys could pay for it." Wei Wuxian retorted in all absurdity, "Don't use Lian Fengzan's name to scare people off. Well, my Lil Apple is a gift from Han Guangjun. How could you take Lil Apple out to night hunt? And even let it be injured?" The juniors from the Lance sect responded in unison, "Liar. They would never believe that someone like Han Guangjun would choose such a gift for someone." Even if Lan Wangji didn't speak up, they firmly refused to believe it. Lan Sizui clarified, Sorry, young Master Mo. Your Lil Apple. Your donkey had been making noise every day in the cloud recesses, and the seniors had been complaining for a long time, ordering us to get rid of it during this night hunt. So, we..." Jinling didn't believe that the donkey was a gift from Lan Wangji either. "I can't even stand looking at that donkey. And it's even called Lil Apple. It's so damn stupid." Lan Jingyi thought that, if it really were from Han Guangjun, then they'd be in trouble. He immediately spoke up for it, "What is wrong with Lil Apple? It likes to eat apples, so it is called Lil Apple. How down to earth. This is 10 times better than calling your fat dog fairy. Jinling, how is fairy fat? Try finding me a spiritual dog that's in a better shape than. Suddenly, all of the chatter ceased. A few seconds later, Wei Wuxian asked, "Is anyone still there?" A series of oomphs and mms came from around him, which meant that everyone was there. Lan Wangji coldly stated, "Noise." How could he silence everyone at once? Wei Wuxian couldn't help but touched his lips, feeling quite lucky. All of a sudden, the sound of footsteps came amid the fog on the front left side. The footsteps staggered in a tremendously cumbersome way. Immediately afterward, from the front right, the sides, and the back came the same sound. Although the fog was too thick for any figures to be seen, the rancid stench had already drifted over. Of course, Wei Wuxian wouldn't worry about just a few walking corpses. He whistled lightly, and ended on a note that curved upward, signaling for them to back off. As he had expected, after the corpses behind the fog heard the whistle, they briefly paused. However, a moment later, they rushed over. Wei Wuxian didn't expect this at all. Not only did the command not work, it actually provoked them. He would never have mixed up the two different commands of back off and be stimulated. Yet, at the moment, there wasn't any time for him to think. 7 or 8 slanting figures had already appeared through the white fog. Judging from the thickness of the fog in Yi City, the fact that they could see them meant that the corpses were already extremely near. Baikon's icy blue sword glare tore open the fog. Surrounding the group, it drew a distinct circle in the air, cutting all of the walking corpses in half, then returning back to its sheath. Wei Wuxian let out a breath of relief, while Lan Wangji lowered his voice. Why? Wei Wuxian was also wondering why couldn't the command control these corpses? With a slow pace and rancid scent, they definitely weren't any high-level corpses. I should have been able to scare them away with just a few claps. It was impossible for my whistling to suddenly not work anymore, since it doesn't use spiritual powers anyways. A situation like this has never. Suddenly, he remembered something. A thin layer of sweat seeped from his back. No. It wasn't that a situation like this has never happened before. In reality, it had indeed happened before, and not only once. There really was a type of corpse or spirit that he couldn't command. Corpses or spirits that were already under the control of the Stygian tiger seal. Lan Wangji lifted the silence spell, and Lan Sizui could talk again. Han Guangjun, is the situation really dangerous? Should we leave the city at once? But the fog is so thick. We cannot use the path or fly out either. One disciple exclaimed, I think more corpses are coming. Where? I did not hear any footsteps. I think I heard strange breathing sounds. The boy only realized what a ridiculous remark it was after he said it, shutting his mouth in embarrassment. Another boy responded, You really are something, are you not? Breathing sounds. Corpses are dead, how can there be any breathing sounds? Before he finished, another large figure crashed over. With Baikon unsheathing again, the shadow's head separated from its body. At the same time, strange splashing sounds could be heard. The disciples who were near the scene all screamed in fright. Afraid that they were hurt, Wei Wuxian immediately called out, What happened? Lan Jingyi, something spurted out of the corpse's body. I think it was some sort of powder. It tasted both bitter and sweet. And rotten. It was very unlucky for him. Since he happened to have wanted to speak, he opened his mouth, and a fair amount of powder went inside. Not caring about how he looked, he immediately spat a few times. The things that gushed out from a corpse were undoubtedly not trivial matters. The powder still roamed in the air. If it was accidentally sucked into the lungs, it would have been even harder to deal with than if it entered one's mouth. Wei Wuxian instructed, All of you, stand away from that area. Come here quickly. Let me see you. Lan Jingyi, okay. But I cannot see you. Where are you? One couldn't even see their hand if it was right in front of them, let alone walk in this fog. Wei Wuxian recalled that, whenever Baikon was unsheathed, its sword glare could penetrate the white fog. He turned to Lan Wangji, who stood by his side. Han Guangjun, draw your sword for a moment, so that he can walk over. Lan Wangji was standing right beside him, yet neither replied nor moved. Suddenly, a clear, blue sword glare lit up an area around 7 steps away. Lan Wangji was there? Then who was the person that had always stood silently beside him? Suddenly, a shadow flashed before Wei Wuxian's eyes. A dark face approached from in front of him. It was dark because, on top of the face, there was a thick layer of black mist. The mist-faced man reached out for the Kai and Kun pouch hung by his side. However, after he had taken it, the Kai and Kun pouch suddenly swelled up. The string that had tied it snapped in half, and 3 enraged spirits shot forward. Forming an entangled mess, they charged toward him. Wei Wuxian laughed. Did you want the Kai and Kun pouch? Then, your eyesight must be in a bad shape. Why did you take my spirit trapping pouch instead? Ever since they snatched the recently unearthed torso from the gravedigger's hands in the Yuancheng sex cemetery and caused him to retreat frustratedly, Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji had always been on the alert. They predicted that he wouldn't give up and would instead look out for any opportunity to take it back. As they had expected, after they entered Yi City, the gravedigger attacked, intending to take advantage of the thick fog and the chattering crowd. Indeed, his attack worked, but Wei Wuxian had long since swapped the Kai Kun pouch that held the left arm with the spirit trapping pouch. With a clang, the opponent jumped backward and unsheathed his sword. Instantly, the spirit's hatred-filled screeches sounded about, as if the attack pushed them toward the verge of dissipating. Wei Wuxian thought to himself, so he really is someone with a high level of cultivation. He immediately shouted, Han Guangjun, the gravedigger's here. Without needing the reminder, Lan Wangji knew that something had happened just by listening. He stayed silent. Baikon's swift, fierce sweep served as response. The current situation was far from optimistic. A black mist covered the gravedigger's sword, making it so that the sword glare didn't come through and allowing it to hide perfectly within the white fog. On the other hand, the sword glare from Lan Wangji's Baikon couldn't be concealed at all. He was out in the open while the enemy was hidden in the dark. Also, the enemy was not only highly skilled in terms of cultivation, but he was also familiar with the Gusulansek's sword moves. And, although both of them were fighting blindly in the fog, he could do whatever he wanted, yet Lan Wangji had to be careful so that he didn't accidentally injure anyone on his own side. Seeing from all of this, Lan Wangji was really at a disadvantage. Having heard a few clashes of the blades, Wei Wuxian's heart suddenly tightened. He blurted out, "Lan's on? Are you hurt?" From afar, there came a muffled grunt, as if someone had received a critical injury. It clearly wasn't Lan Wangji's voice, though. Lan Wangji, of course not. Wei Wuxian grinned, so it seems. It sounded as if the other person laughed bitterly. He attacked again. The clashing sounds of Baikon's glare and the other sword were farther and farther away. Wei Wuxian knew that Lan Wangji didn't want to accidentally hurt them and purposely drew the battle away to deal with the gravedigger on his own. Of course, the rest was up to Wei Wuxian. He turned around. How are the ones who inhaled the powder? Lan Sizui, they are starting to have trouble standing up. Wei Wuxian, come to the middle and number yourselves off. It was fortunate that, after finishing off a wave of walking corpses and leading away a gravedigger, nothing else came to disturb them. The noise of the bamboo pole didn't come out to make trouble either. The remaining disciples gathered around and counted themselves off. Nobody was missing. Wei Wuxian took Lan Jingyi into his hands and felt his forehead. It was a bit warm. He then felt the foreheads of the other boys who had inhaled the powder from the corpse. They were the same. He lifted Lan Jingyi's eyelids. Show me your tongue. Ah. Lan Jingyi, ah. Wei Wuxian, yep. Congratulations. You're under corpse poisoning. Jinling, how is this something to congratulate someone for? Wei Wuxian, it's another life experience. It'd be a conversation starter when you grow older. Corpse poisoning was mostly due to being wounded by a turned corpse or having a wound touch their necrotic blood. Cultivators usually didn't allow walking corpses to get so near that they get wounded, so nobody made it a habit to carry elixirs that cured corpse poisoning. Lan Sizui worried, "Young Master Mo, will anything happen to them?" Wei Wuxian, "Nothing at the moment. When it goes in the bloodstream and travels all around the body and enters the heart, then nothing could help anymore." Lan Sizui, "What will happen?" Wei Wuxian, "Whatever happens to corpses will happen to you. If you're lucky, you're just going to rot away. If you're not, you might become a long-haired zombie and you'll only be able to hop around for the rest of your life." All of the poisoned disciples gasped. Wei Wuxian, "So you want to cure it?" Everyone nodded. Wei Wuxian continued, "If you want to cure it, then listen up. From now on, all of you have to behave and listen to whatever I say. Every one of you." Although a lot of the boys still weren't familiar with him, seeing that he could intimately call Han Guangjun by his birth name as if they were from the same generation, that they stood in the middle of an ominously foggy haunted city, and that they were both poisoned and feverish, they felt particularly anxious, instinctively wanting to depend on someone. And, since anything that came out of Wei Wuxian's mouth somehow had a tone of confidence that eliminated all worries, they couldn't help but listen to his words, answering in unison, "Yes." Wei Wuxian pressed further, "You have to do whatever I tell you to. Be obedient. Understood?" "Yes." Wei Wuxian clapped, "Stand up. Those who aren't poisoned can carry those who are, preferably over the shoulder. If you can only lift them on your front, remember to position the head and the heart higher than the rest of the body." Lan Jingyi, "But I can walk. Why do we need to be carried?" Wei Wuxian, "Brother, if you jump around, your blood is going to circulate quickly, and it will enter your heart sooner. So you shouldn't move too much. It's best if you don't move at all." The boys immediately stood as still as boards, allowing their peers to lift them up. Carried on the shoulder of another disciple from his sect, one boy mumbled, "The corpse that sprinkled the poisonous powder really did breathe." The boy who carried him complained as he panted on, "I already told you. If it knew how to breathe, then it'd be a living person." Lan Sizui, "Young Master Mo, all of them have been carried. Where will we go?" Lan Sizui was the nicest, most obedient, and least worrisome one. Wei Wuxian replied, "At the moment, we definitely won't be able to leave the city. Let's knock a few doors." Jinling, "Knock the doors of what?" Wei Wuxian thought for a moment, "Is there anything else that has doors except for houses?" Jinling, "You want us to enter these houses? It's already this dangerous outside. Who knows what things are hidden in these rooms, watching and waiting for us." After he spoke, everyone felt that there really were pairs of eyes hidden within the fog in the houses, closely watching their every move, their every word. They couldn't help but shuddered in fear. Wei Wuxian responded, "True. It's hard to say whether outside the houses or inside the houses is more dangerous. But, since it's already like this on the outside, the inside can't be any worse. Let's go. There's no time to lose. We still need to cure the poisoning." The group had to do what they were told. Listening to Wei Wuxian's instructions, everyone held the sword sheath of the person in front of him, so that they didn't wander off amid the dense fog. From house to house, they knocked on the doors. Jinling pounded for a while, and didn't hear any response from within the house. "There doesn't seem to be anyone inside this one. Let's go in." Wei Wuxian's voice drifted over, "Who told you to enter if there wasn't anyone inside? Continue knocking. We need to go into a house that does have someone inside of it." Jinling, "You want to find one with someone inside?" Wei Wuxian, "Yes. Knock nicely. Your knocks were too strong. It's quite rude." Jinling was so irritated that he almost kicked the wooden door down. In the end, he only stomped angrily on the ground. Every household by the street shut its door tightly, refraining from opening it no matter how hard they knocked. The more Jinling knocked, the more annoyed he became, but the amount of force he exerted had clearly lessened. On the other hand, Lin Sizui remained calm. At the 13th shop, he repeated the phrase that had already been repeated a number of times, "Excuse me. Is anyone inside?" Suddenly, the door shifted. A thin, black slit had been opened. It was very dark on the other side of the door, not allowing anyone to make out what was behind the slit. The person who opened the door didn't speak either. The boys who were close by couldn't help but stepped backward. Lan Sizui regained his composure. "Excuse us, but are you the manager of the shop?" A moment passed, and an old, bizarre voice leaked from the slit, "Yes." Wei Wuxian walked over and patted Lan Sizui's shoulder, signaling for him to step back as well, and spoke, "Manager, it's our first time coming here. The fog was so thick that we got lost. We've been walking for a long time already, and we're rather tired. Would it be possible for you to lend your shop so that we can rest a bit?" The bizarre voice replied, "My shop is not for travelers to rest." Wei Wuxian looked as if he didn't find anything strange at all, and spoke with his usual expression, "But, in the area, there isn't any other shop that has anyone inside. Manager, are you really not willing to do us a favor? We are willing to pay." Jinling blurted out, "How would you get the money to pay? Let's make this clear, I won't lend you money." Wei Wuxian waggled a delicate pouch in front of his eyes, "Look what this is." Lan Sizui was shocked, "How dare you? This is Han Guangjun's." As they argued, the slit was opened a bit further. Although they still couldn't see the furniture in the room, they could see that a gray-haired, expressionless woman stood behind the door. Although the old woman had a hunched back, appearing quite elderly at first glance, she actually didn't have a lot of wrinkles or age spots. It would even be possible to describe her as middle-aged. She proceeded to open the door and move out of the way. It looked like that she was willing to let them in. Jinling was astonished. He whispered, "She really is willing to let us in?" Wei Wuxian also whispered, "Of course. One of my feet was within the slit, so she couldn't close the door even if she wanted to. If she still didn't let me in, I would have just kicked the door down." Jinling. Yi City was already frightening and peculiar. The people who lived here were definitely not ordinary either. Seeing how suspicious the old woman looked, the disciples all whispered in silence. Although they didn't want to go inside at all, there wasn't any other choice left for them. They could only pick up their peers, who were too scared to move an inch due to the poisoning, and enter the door one by one. The old woman stood waiting on the side, looking coldly at them. When everyone was inside, she immediately closed the door. The room was pitch black again. Wei Wuxian asked, "Manager, why do you not open the lights?" The old woman, "The light is on the table. Light it yourselves." Lan Sizui just happened to be standing by a table. Slowly feeling around, he found an oil lamp covered with a thick layer of dust. He fished out a fire talisman and lit it up. As he moved it toward the lamp wick, unintentionally looking around the room, a gush of cold air washed from his feet to his head. His scalp tingled with terror. Within the shop's central chamber, a room full of people were crammed inside, shoulders to shoulders and heels to heels. Each and every single one of them had their eyes wide open, staring at them without a single blink. In Chapter The Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation. Chapter 34. Grasses, Part 3. He couldn't help but loosen his hand, yet Wei Wuxian saved the oil lamp just as it was about to hit the ground. Calmly brushing it against the burning fire talisman on the other hand, he lit it up and set it onto the table. "Did you make these yourself, manager? They're quite well made." The rest finally realized that the people who stood in the room were not real humans, but actually paper mannequins. The mannequins' heads and bodies were delicately crafted, the same size as those of real people. There were men, women, and even children. All of the men were nether brawlers, crafted with tall, sturdy bodies and angered expressions. All of the women were fair-featured beauties, with hair in either single or double buns. Even when covered with loose-fitting paper clothes, one could still see their graceful postures. The patterns on the clothes were almost finer than those of real brocade robes. Some were colored with rich, vivid ink, others were uncolored, left with ashen grays. On each mannequin's cheeks, there were 2 smears of blush in pretense for a living person's rosy complexion. However, none of their pupils had been added yet, the eyes were entirely white. The bolder the blush was, the gloomier they looked. There was another table in the room. On the table, there were a few candlesticks, each a different length than the others. Wei Wuxian lit them up one by one, and the yellow light illuminated most corners of the house. Aside from the paper mannequins, there were also 2 wreaths placed on both sides of the room. Paper gold, ghost money, and pagodas were heaped up beside the walls. Jinling already had his sword slightly unsheathed. Seeing that it was only a shop that sold burial goods, he sighed with discreet relief and sheathed his sword again. In the cultivational world, even if a cultivator passed away, nobody employed the eerie, chaotic obsequies of the common folk. Since they hadn't seen such things before, after the initial scare, curiosity sprouted from within their hearts. With skin covered in goosebumps, they felt that it was even more exciting than night hunting ordinary beasts. No matter how dense the fog was, it couldn't seep into houses. Ever since they entered Yi City, this was the only point in time where they could easily see one another's faces, which set their minds at rest. Wei Wuxian saw that they'd relaxed, and asked the old woman again, "Would it be possible for us to borrow your kitchen?" The old woman almost glowered at the lamp, as if she disliked the presence of any light. "The kitchen is in the back. Use it as you please." After her words, she dodged into another room as though she was avoiding the plague. She slammed the door so loud that a few even shivered. Jinling exclaimed, "There's definitely something wrong with the hag. You." Wei Wuxian responded, "Okay. Hush. I need somebody to help me. Any volunteers?" Lan Sisui hurried, "I can come." Lan Jingyi was still standing as straight as a stick. "Then what do I do?" Wei Wuxian, "Remain standing. Don't move if I don't tell you to." Lan Sisui followed Wei Wuxian to the kitchen in the back. As soon as they went in, they were overwhelmed by a foul stench. Lan Sisui had never smelled such a terrible scent before. Although his head spun, he managed to stop himself from rushing back out. Jinling followed as well, but leapt outside again immediately after he entered. He fanned the air as fast as he could. "What in the world is this? What are you doing here instead of thinking up cures?" Wei Wuxian. Perfect timing. How did you know that I was going to call you over? Lend me a hand." Jinling, "I'm not here to help." "Ugh! Did somebody kill someone but forget to bury them?" Wei Wuxian, "Young Mistress Jin, are you coming or not? If you're coming, then come in and help. If you're not coming, then go back and tell someone else to come over." Jinling raged, "Who are you calling young Mistress Jin? Be careful what you say." He pinched his nose for a while, debating with himself whether or not to stay or to leave, and finally humped, "Well, I want to see what on earth you're trying to do." With this, he stormed inside. Yet, he didn't expect that, with a bang, Wei Wuxian opened a chest on the ground, which was where the stench came from. Within the chest, there were ham and chicken. Blotches of green dotted among the red meat, while white, coiling maggots dotted among the green. Jinling was forced to exit the room again. Wei Wuxian picked up the chest and passed it to him. "Throw it away. Anywhere works, as long as we don't smell it." With a churning stomach and a head full of doubt, Jinling threw it out as he was told. He fiercely rubbed his fingers with a handkerchief, then threw it out as well. After he returned to the kitchen, Wei Wuxian and Lan Sisui fetched 2 buckets of water from the well in the backyard, and were currently cleaning the kitchen. Jinling demanded, "What are you doing?" Lan Sisui wiped around in diligence, "As you can see, we are cleaning the kitchen hearth." Jinling, "What's the use of cleaning the hearth? We're not making food or anything." Wei Wuxian, "Who told you so? We are making food. You can sweep the dust. Get rid of all the cobwebs up there." His words sounded so natural, so assured that, with a broom stuck into his hands, Jinling somehow obeyed. The more he cleaned, the more he felt that something was off. Just as he was about to throw the duster at Wei Wuxian's head, Wei Wuxian opened another box, scaring him to the point that he darted out again. Luckily, this time, there wasn't any stench. The three worked quickly. After a short while, the kitchen looked completely different. The house finally seemed a bit more lively, no longer haunted and long abandoned. In a corner, there were some already chopped firewood. They piled them into the hearth and set them alight using a fire talisman. They rested a large pot that they had already washed on the hearth and began to boil water. Wei Wuxian poured some glutinous rice out of the second chest, washed all of it, and put it into the pot. Jinling, you're making congee? Wei Wuxian, Jinling hurled the cleaning rag onto the ground. Wei Wuxian commented, you see how you get mad after working for just a bit? Look at Sizui. He worked the hardest and didn't even say anything yet. What's wrong with congee? Jinling, what's not wrong with congee? It's so watery and tasteless. Wait. I'm not mad because there's something wrong with congee. Wei Wuxian, it's not for you anyways. Jinling was even more angered. What did you say? I worked for so long, and I don't even get any? Lan Sizui, young Master Mo, is it that congee can cure corpse poisoning? Wei Wuxian smiled, yes, but it's not the congee that can cure corpse poisoning, it's the rice. This is folk medicine. Normally, you apply the glutinous rice to the scratched or bitten wound. In the future, if you ever find yourselves in such a situation again, you can try this. Although it'll hurt a lot, it definitely works efficiently. But, since they swallowed corpse poisoning powder instead of being scratched or bitten, we can only make some rice congee for them to eat up. Lan Sizui came to realization, so that was why you intended to enter a house with someone inside. Only a house with someone living inside could have a kitchen. Only a kitchen could have glutinous rice. Jinling, who knows how long the rice has been here for? Can you still eat it? This kitchen hasn't been used in at least a year. There's dust everywhere and the meat's even rotten. Don't tell me that the hag hasn't eaten for an entire year. It's impossible that she has practiced anedia. How did she survive? Wei Wuxian, it's either that nobody has been living here and that she really isn't the shopkeeper at all, or that she simply doesn't need to eat. Lan Sizui lowered his voice, if she does not need to eat, then she would be dead. But the old woman clearly breathes. Using a spatula, Wei Wuxian nonchalantly stirred the pot of congee, mixing in ingredients from various bottles and jars. Right. You haven't finished explaining. Why did you come to Yi City together? It wasn't just by chance that you ran into each other and then us, was it? The boy's expressions immediately grew serious. Jinling replied, the land sex people, and the ones from other sects were all chasing after something. I came from the King area. Lan Sizui also replied, we came from Lanya. Wei Wuxian, what was it? Lan Sizui shook his head, we do not know. It never showed its face. We don't even know what or who. Or which organization it was, exactly. Ever since a few days ago, after Jinling lied to his uncle and let Wei Wuxian go, he had been worried that this time Zhongqing would really break his legs, so he decided to sneak out and disappear for a few days, not appearing in front of Zhongqing until his anger subsided. He ran away immediately after he passed Zidian to one of Zhongqing's trusted subordinates. Having arrived at a city on the border of the King area, his journey paused. In search for the location for his next night hunt, he took a short rest at a large inn. At night, when he was memorizing spells in his room, Fairy, who lay by his side, suddenly started barking at the door. It was already deep into the night. Jinling ordered the dog to stop, yet he immediately heard someone knocking on the door. Although Fairy stopped barking, it was still restless. Its claws dug at the ground as it growled deeply. Already on the alert, Jinling asked for who the person was. There came no reply, so he got back to his business. However, after an hour, the knocks sounded again. Jinling leapt out the window along with Fairy. He circled around and went upstairs from the first floor, intending to see who exactly was messing with him in the middle of the night. Despite his efforts, there was nobody there. He waited silently for a while, but still didn't see anyone in front of his door. Keeping an eye on this, he let Fairy guard the door. He was ready to attack the person at any moment and stayed awake for the whole night. Despite this, nothing had happened. There were only some strange sounds, as if water was dripping down. On the second morning, a scream came from outside the door. Jinling kicked the door open only to step into a pool of blood. Something fell from above the door. Darting backward, Jinling barely managed to prevent it from hitting him. It was a black cat. Someone, not long ago, nailed the corpse of a dead cat on top of his door. The strange dripping sounds he heard throughout the night were from the cat's blood dripping down. Jinling, it was the same after switching to a few different ends, so I went on the offensive. If I heard that a cat's corpse happened to appear anywhere, I would go and see, since I just had to find out who was messing around. Wei Wuxian turned to Lan Shizui, you guys as well? Lan Shizui nodded, yes. A few days ago, a few of us were night hunting at Lanya. During dinner one day, we suddenly fished out the unskinned head of a cat from inside the soup. In the beginning, we did not know that it was directed at us, but on that night, when we switched to another inn, we found the corpse of a cat in one of the bed sheets. It was the same for a few continuous days. We chased after it, arrived at Yueyang, and ran into young Master Jin. We found out that we were searching for the same thing, so we decided to work together, and only arrived at this area today. We asked a hunter in the village in front of a stone tablet, and we were shown the path to Yi City. Wei Wuxian thought to himself, a hunter? The juniors should have passed the village in front the road fork after Lan Wangji, and he did. However, they didn't see any hunters at the time. There were only a few timid village women feeding chicken, who said that the men were out shipping goods and wouldn't be back for a long while. The more Wei Wuxian thought about it, the more solemn his expression grew. From the narration, their opposition did nothing other than killing cats and dumping the corpses. Although it both sounded and looked scary, they weren't actually harmed. In fact, these events stirred up their curiosity to get to the root of the matter. Also, these juniors met one another in Yueyang. Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji also came to Shedong from Yueyang. It almost seemed as if somebody was purposely leading the muddle-headed juniors to meet up with the two of them. To lead a few confused juniors to a dangerous place for them to face the violent limb of a fierce corpse, wasn't this the exact same routine as the occurrence at Mo Village? And, this wasn't the most complicated part of it. Right now, what Wei Wuxian feared the most was that the Stygian tiger seal might be within Yi City at this very moment. Although Wei Wuxian didn't really want to accept this possibility, it was nonetheless the most reasonable explanation. After all, someone who could restore half of the tiger seal had even existed. Despite the talk that he had been dealt with, who knew where the seal that he had restored went? Suddenly, Lan Shizui, who had been squatting on the ground to fan the flame, raised his head. Senior Mo, I think that the congee is ready. Gathering his thoughts, he stopped stirring. He grabbed the bowl that Lan Shizui had washed and tasted a spoonful of the congee. It's ready. Take it out. Feed one bowl to each person who had been poisoned. However, after it had been carried out, Lan Jingyi only had one mouthful before spitting it out. What is this? Poison? Wei Wuxian, how is this poison? It's the cure. Glutinous rice congee. Lan Jingyi, first of all, I don't know why glutinous rice would be the cure, but I've never eaten such a spicy bowl of congee before. The rest of the boys who had tasted their servings nodded in unison, all of their eyes wet with tears. Wei Wuxian stroked his chin. He grew up in Yun. People from Yun were all quite spice tolerant, but Wei Wuxian's penchant for spice was beyond hardcore. Anytime he set about the kitchen, the food would be so spicy that even Zhang Cheng could only smash his bowl and curse. Yet, for some reason, he just couldn't hold back from adding spoonful after spoonful of seasoning. It seemed that, this time, he wasn't able to control his hands either. Out of curiosity, Lan Shizui picked up the bowl and tried a mouthful. Even as his face flushed red and his eyes teared up, He pursed his lips and refrained from spitting it out, thinking to himself, the taste is so scary that it almost brings about a sense of déjà vu. Wei Wuxian, all medicine is poisonous to some degree. The spice will make you sweat so that you get better sooner. The words coming from the boys revealed their disbelief. Nonetheless, with bitter faces, they ate up the congee. Within seconds, all of their faces reddened and their foreheads gleamed as they suffered from the agony. Wei Wuxian couldn't help but comment, "It's not that serious, is it? Han Guangjun is also from Gusu. He takes spice quite well, so why are you guys like this?" Lan Sizui answered with a hand covering his mouth, "No, senior. Han Guangjun's taste is very mild. He never eats spice." Wei Wuxian paused for a moment, "Really?" But he could remember that in his past life, before he betrayed the Yunzhong sect, he had met with Lan Wangji and Yiling once. At the time, although Wei Wuxian was widely reviled, it wasn't to the point that everyone wanted to beat him up. Thus, pulling on a thick face, he asked Lan Wangji to have dinner with him so that they could reminisce together. All of the dishes that Lan Wangji ordered were packed with Szechuan peppers, and so he had always thought that Lan Wangji's taste for spice was pretty much the same as him. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't remember whether or not Lan Wangji actually picked up his chopsticks. Then again, he even forgot about how he said that the meal was his treat, so Lan Wangji ended up paying for them anyway. This was why it was only natural for him to forget such a detail. He didn't know why, but, all of a sudden, he really wanted to see Lan Wangji's face. Senior Mo. Wei Wuxian finally pulled himself together. Lan Sizui whispered, "The old lady's door has opened." From somewhere came an eerie gust of wind, faintly opening the room's door. The door swayed open and closed, revealing the vague outline of a stooping shadow sitting by a table within the frightful darkness. Wei Wuxian signaled for them to stay put and walked into the room alone. The dim light of the oil lamp and candlesticks in the central chamber leaked inside. The old woman sat with her head hung low, as if she didn't notice that someone had entered. A cloth lay on her knees, tightly stretched with an embroidery frame, suggesting that she was doing needlework. Her two hands stiffly stuck to each other as they tried to guide a thread through a needle. Wei Wuxian sat down by the table as well. "Manager, why not light the lamp if you're threading a needle? Let me help." He took over the needle and thread. The thread went through at once. Passing it back to the old woman, he walked out of the room as if nothing had happened and closed the door behind him. "There's no need to go in." "Jinling, when you were inside, did you see if the hag's actually alive or not?" "Wei Wuxian, don't call her a hag. That's quite rude. The old lady is a living corpse." The boys looked at one another. Lan Sizui asked, "What is a living corpse?" Wei Wuxian, "From head to toe, everything seems to say that they're a corpse, but the person is actually living. That's what a living corpse is." Jinling was shocked, "You're saying that she's still alive?" Wei Wuxian, "Have you looked inside?" "Yes." "What did you see? What was she doing?" "Threading a needle." "Did it go in?" "No." "Correct. She's incapable of threading a needle. Dead people's muscles are too rigid to perform complex actions such as threading needles. The marks on her face aren't age spots, but livor mortis. And she doesn't need to eat, either. It's only that she can breathe which makes her alive." Lan Sizui, "But, the old lady is already quite elderly. A lot of old ladies have poor eyesight and cannot thread needles by themselves." Wei Wuxian, "So I helped her. Did you notice the other thing, though? From opening the door until now, she hasn't blinked even once." The boys blinked a few times. Wei Wuxian continued, "Living people blink to prevent eyes from becoming sore. Dead people, on the other hand, have no need to do this. And, when I took the needle and thread over, did anyone notice how she looked at me?" Jinling, "Her eyeballs didn't move. But her head did." Wei Wuxian, "Precisely. When most people look somewhere, their eyeballs usually move, no matter how slight the movement is. However, dead people's eyes don't. This is because dead people can't carry out an action as subtle as moving their eyeballs. They can only turn their heads and necks instead. Lan Jingyi was baffled. Should we be taking notes? Wei Wuxian, a good habit, but do you think you'd have time to flip through your notes when you're out night hunting? Keep it in your minds. Jinling spoke through clenched teeth. Walking corpses are already weird enough. Why do things like living corpses exist? Wei Wuxian, there are a lot of disadvantages to dead people, rigid muscles, slow movement, and so on. However, there are also quite a few advantages: the lack of fear towards pain, the inability to think, how easy they are to control. Somebody thought that they could amend for the disadvantages of corpses and create perfect corpse puppets. This was how living corpses came into being. Although the boys didn't say anything, one single sentence was written all over their faces: this person must be Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian didn't know whether to laugh or frown, thinking silently, but I really haven't done such a thing. Although, it really did sound like his way of doing things. He carried on, ahem. Alright. Wei Wuxian started it. But, he successfully made Wen Ning, or the Ghost General. To be honest, I've always wanted to ask, who exactly came up with this title? It's so dumb. Anyways, there were some other people who wanted to imitate this but weren't good enough, so they used improper means. Targeting living people instead, they developed living corpses. He concluded, a type of failed imitations. Hearing Wei Wuxian's name, Jinling's face froze over. He snorted. Wei Ying himself used improper means. Wei Wuxian, yep. Then, the ones who developed living corpses used the most improper means of all improper means. Lan Sizui, Senior Mo, what should we do now? Wei Wuxian, some living corpses may not know that they're already dead. I think that this old lady is one of the confused corpses. Let's just not disturb her for now. Out of blue, a series of the crisp taps of a bamboo pole knocking on the ground suddenly sounded. The sound came from nearby a window, which was sealed shut by strips of black, wooden boards. All of the disciples in the central chamber turned pale. Ever since they entered the city, they had been constantly pestered by the sound. They now panicked whenever they heard it. Wei Wuxian gestured for them to be quiet. All of them held their breaths as they watched Wei Wuxian walk to the window and look outside through a narrow slit between the boards. As soon as Wei Wuxian approached the slit, he could see a field of white. He thought that the fog outside was too thick for him to see anything. Suddenly, however, the whiteness rapidly shrunk backward. He saw a pair of white, hideous eyes, glowering at the slit between the boards. The field of white he saw wasn't fog, but the pair of pupil-less eyes. In Chapter